Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, the beta for the new Elementary OS was released. This is codenamed Juno, and I can't tell if it's 0.5 or 5.0. According to most of their stuff, it's 5.0. According to the download, it's 0.5. Which is kind of par for the course for the Elementary team. Now, we're going to go ahead and have a look at a few articles. We may or we may not actually boot this thing up, and a lot of the biggest reason is they say, hey, YouTubers and distro reviewers and all those guys, don't look at this yet, don't look at it yet, it's in active development. Let's go ahead and talk about this. All right, so the early release thing from OMG Ubuntu, this is looks like they redesigned their website. Interesting. So Elementary OS Juno beta is now available to download. Now, what they're going to tell you down here is, he asks bloggers, journalists, and YouTubers avoid making any formal review using the beta build. Why? When you publicize buggy, unstable, pre-release images, it can damage our brand and hurt adoption. Well, your releases are just as buggy and screwed up. So I don't see what problem we're going to have. And that's kind of where my problem has always been at Elementary. Now, if you follow my channel, you know I'm not a firm supporter of Elementary. It has some merits to it, but there are too many issues with it for me to ever really recommend it. I do have some videos on why you should use or could use it, because there's obviously some valid points to it. But first, let's address my biggest concerns from my previous videos. The number one concern that I have is they don't know who their target audience is. Because half of it is, this is great for a new user, but the problem is a new user has a hard time working it. Because when you would install it, all the versions I tried, you cannot install it, go into the update manager in the GUI and actually update. If you update the thing from a terminal, it will go update and get past most of its instability. Okay? That's the experience that I've always had all of the times I've attempted to run Elementary. And so a lot of the people who were praising Elementary, I know for a fact are people, they don't use the GUI for anything they don't have to. They would install it, they'd boot up a terminal, they'd run the updates and upgrades through the terminal. And so they'd have this great user experience because that's the way they're used to. But if it's a distro designed for new users, which is where their marketing seems to suggest, the priority is everything should be done in the GUI, like Cinnamon. Linux Mint. I'm sorry, Cinnamon version is my favorite version. There's 3 versions of Linux Mint now. But Linux Mint, everything works in the GUI. You don't need to drop to the terminal. That's what makes it such a good distribution. Elementary, I've never had it work right out of the box without having to do my initial round of upgrades through the terminal. That is not something a new user can do. All right, so it's available for download, so let's go ahead and have a look at this, and then we'll look at some of the other posts as well. So they say it's OS 5.0 Juno's next major release based on Ubuntu. This is an Ubuntu base based on 1804 LTS. It ships with the latest GNOME stack, updated software security, kernel updates, and more. Now, first and foremost, let's get this part out of the way. This is not a beta, people. This is a non-functioning OS, which is the purpose of this is so that developers can test if their apps have some basic functionality. That's called an alpha, not a beta. Okay, I'd like to see them come out and say, we made a mistake, that was supposed to be an alpha. That'd be a cool thing for them to do. Okay, because an alpha is not ready for testing. A beta, by definition in software design, is for testing. Okay, it means we have got this figured out. We're releasing it now. It can be tried and tested by people. As of their system right now, allegedly, and I didn't check, but allegedly they don't have any apps in the App Store yet. Okay, they say don't use it. It's not ready for even any basic use. This is just for developers to make sure that their apps function. That's called an alpha. Let's get this right. Let's stop confusing and muddying the waters around this kind of stuff. Okay? So he says, you don't have to wait until a stable release date, which is yet unknown, to try it out. Anyone with a virtual machine or spare partition can install Elementary Juno beta for themselves right now. However, just because you download the preview doesn't mean you should download it, as Elementary themselves warn. Beta equals not production quality. And we can understand that. I can understand a beta is not production quality, but a beta does need to have some functionality. It's the same thing that I talked about with Xtern OS. Xtern OS was really supposed to be an alpha, not a beta. And when you get out, and it's the trendy thing to do now to release a beta that's not ready. Because I got news for you. Linux Mint beta, Ubuntu beta, all these other beta systems for these more stable projects, they're ready to use. You may encounter some bugs, and we understand that installing a beta, but they work. They're functional. Okay, this doesn't work. It's not functional, according to them. I haven't looked at it yet. I've installed it. I haven't looked at it. And so for here, beta is a special release intended for third-party developers and highly technical users. Developers need pre-release in order to take advantage of the new platform features. That's alpha, not beta. Okay, also he asks bloggers, journalists, YouTubers to avoid making any formal reviews using the beta build so that, we don't publicize buggy, unstable pre-release images. It can damage our brand and hurt adoption and sales of the final production-ready release. Well, yeah, I'm not really going to comment further on that. All right, so fifth release of Elementary operating system will introduce major changes to the look and feel of the OS, from the Pantheon desktop to the Gala window manager. So basically, they're changing some of the styles. They are making things, like, to my understanding, a little bit easier to see. Okay, many of the visual changes will be most pronounced in third-party software designed for distro and distributed through the Elementary App Center. Parenthetical weirdness. Okay. So the App Center currently has around 95 apps in it, with additional theme capabilities. So if there's more theme capabilities, that's good. That's really good. That's one of the things that was really missing. New Granite widgets and desktop APIs available in new release, and that number is sure to swell. Look forward to seeing it and covering what their devs create. So here's the list of new features. Nightlight feature. For those that use it, I guess that's a good thing, particularly since Elementary didn't have any dark mode options, and any attempt to change the theme to something you would want would render the thing completely unstable. It's good to have that for people who want that. Animated system indicator icons, so eye candy. Improved power applet with middle click toggle for battery percentage. Okay, so useful for laptops. New installer and initial setup tool. I have not seen that. The installer was the same installer that I've seen many times. Improved high DPI support, which is good. Notifications no longer show by default for many apps. I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad. Some people, if you're used to installing something and seeing notifications, I guess this is probably maybe a good thing. Or not a good thing. For people who don't like notifications as much like me, this is good, because I don't want to be notified because the song changes on VLC. Okay? Song change. I kind of heard that. I did not need the OS to tell me that with a notification. Like, worse than Windows 10. Ding! Did you know that Cortana can give you your calendar updates? Did you know I banished Cortana for a reason? Okay, new sound effects on new notifications. Okay, shortcut overlay appears when pressing Windows super key, and new permissions panel for apps using location. Okay, so that's good. More permissions for apps, location apps and things. Okay, that's good. All right. That's just a concise rundown. Do point out our favorite changes in the comments below. All right, your favorite. Okay. So then, of course, you can download it. They don't have a torrent download at this point in time. You just grab that. And like I said, they say it's 5.0 beta. When you actually download it, it's 0.5. So I don't know what it is, but that's kind of par for the course for what some of the things that I have seen. Of course, there's another article. This is developers preview with plenty of fine print. Now, this one is where they're saying the App Center is empty in this release and not safe for use in production. This is not a release. It is a pre-release. Like I said, if they call this an alpha, good. But they don't. They call it a beta, which implies things work. And then they kind of have this indication over here. Make sure that, if you are a developer, you should be downloading this so that you can double check, particularly with the change in GTK, is a rewrite of the CSS style sheet. So you need to make sure that everything is working with your apps. That's not an elementary thing. That's a GTK thing. And then, of course, they tell you how to report bugs. Don't make comments like, I have this issue too. Instead, use the reaction. Oh, they're going to get so trolled by telling people how to do this. Oh, man, I cannot wait to see the trolling. And I won't do any of it. It's just, and I'm not encouraging anybody to do it, but yeah. When you make statements like this on the internet likes to react. Somebody's going to set up an auto script. I have this too. I have this too. I have this too. I have this too. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely. And avoid making comments like, hurry up and fix. Guys, don't tell the internet what not to do. Okay, just don't tell the internet what not to do. And of course, here's a huge disclaimer a lot. You should not download and install it. It has known regressions and bugs. Potentially is dangerous. I don't know. Interesting. And then here's your download link. And they have some other things, like here's the look and feel changes, expanded color palettes, and things like that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the issues that I've had in the past. Because if you want to fix things, it's not adding new notification noises that we need to fix. So first of all, let's look at the two areas that I have identified in the past consistently that Elementary was very good at. Number one is if you had used it exactly as the developers intended, Elementary was a decent OS. Okay, which means you're not working off your desktop, you're not modifying anything, you're using exactly the way that they want you to, with the exception of you need to run your initial run of updates in the terminal, according to my experience every time I've tested it. So that is, you would really have to use it exactly the way intended, with the exact themes, with the exact everything, in order for it to be a decent operating system. Any deviation from the norm, which basically means any Linux user using this system as Linux users like to use Linux, breaks the system. That's been the ultimate complaint. That and Elementary, like it or not, whether it works beautifully for you or not, only about 50% of hardware seems to be well supported. Based on the comments that I've received. I mean, I have, some of my top videos on my channel are all talking about Elementary OS. All right. And with that, I have a whole lot of people that say it works great. It's awesome. You're just a loser and you're a moron and you're enter your expletive here. And then I have about half the people that say, no, this thing doesn't work at all. And it literally is about a 50-50 split. Now, no distro is going to work perfectly on every bit of hardware. So this is why I recommend a variety of different distros. Maybe Linux Mint isn't what works well for you. And if it doesn't work well for you, then what you should do is look around for another distro. If Linux Mint's not working for you and you don't really care to make system adjustments, try Elementary. Give it a try. But really what the team has done at Elementary is they've developed a very fan-based, like a very Apple cult-like feel. Because it's like, this is the best distro in the world. It's like, dude, it doesn't work on about half of hardware it's on. That's just a reality. Based on the comments that I've seen. The second thing Elementary has done very good is parental controls. They have the best pre-built-in parental controls there are. So if you had a family and you had a family computer with non-technical people in the household that you wanted to set up a computer that's going to work well, and particularly if you have kids and stuff, Elementary would be a great choice for that family computer in the corner. Because it has excellent parental stuff. You can create a separate account for each of your children. You can give each of your children access to different applications, different times of use, different things like that. It has a lot of really good built-in system tools. And hopefully those don't change. Now, what have I been critical of? The first and foremost is that you can't use the desktop. There's no way to use the desktop. And there have been numerous ways. In fact, if you get on the internet and do a search for TweakTool and Elementary, what you will find is that every single release has its own instructions for installing a TweakTool. Because every single time there's a release, the Elementary team breaks the previous way of installing a TweakTool. Why is there so many ways to install TweakTools? Because people want to have it. Elementary team, give us a TweakTool. You want to have a good system, give us a TweakTool. It doesn't even have to be installed by default. But for those of us that want to use Linux, like Linux users like to use Linux, give us a tweak tool so we can do things like use the desktop and install a dark mode and a variety of other things that we can do on other distros. Because I don't want a walled garden piece of crap operating system. That's why I use Linux. And that's why a lot of people use Linux. All right. You can actually install a variety of things. I have a video on how to do it. If you do use Elementary and you want to use the desktop, there are instructions to do it. I did do that. But according to them, they don't want you to use the desktop. But face the reality, people. Most people use the desktop. Give us the option. All right. Now, the second thing that I've been critical of, actually, I already talked about that. They keep breaking previous tools. The third is that the updates, in every instance I've tried it, whether a VirtualBox, whether on or on bare metal, no matter what, I could never get updates to install through the GUI the first time. Always crashes, always introduces more instability. I've always had to run the updates through the terminal first. That is a lot to ask for a new person, particularly since it appears as though most of their marketing is geared towards new users. We have got to have a system that works without dropping to a terminal at all. It's great to have it for the people that want to use it, but we need to have an option that will allow you to work. All right. Number 1, 2, 3, 4 is I found several GUI locations that simply froze the system. For example, doing tweaks to hotkeys. Anytime I attempted to do tweaks to hotkeys, it would crash the entire system. The whole system would freeze. It would give me complete instability. I'd have to force power off the computer and restart it simply because I was trying to change the hotkeys. Okay. So that is what that looks like. And common system tweaks often break the system. So most Linux users, there are certain tweaks that you want to do to the system. And in the people's various attempts in order to do that, all that kind of stuff would end up causing instabilities to make the system not be very good to use at all. So those are kind of the negatives. And what I would like to see is, rather than focusing on color panels and new notifications and stuff like that, I like to see them address some of these issues. Give us a Linux distro that allows us to work off the desktop if that's our choice. Give us a tweak tool that third parties don't have to keep on rebuilding and refixing the tweak tool because you keep breaking it in the system. Because we're getting these instructions for tweak tools because those of us who like to do things want a tweak tool in our operating system. Give us the option to install it. It doesn't have to be on there by default, but it's just got to be an option that's available to say, hey, advanced users, here's a tweak tool for you. You can turn on the desktop. You can enable a dark mode. You can do a lot of different things. Those are huge, huge steps that go into it. And then fix these GUI things. Figure out who is your target audience and build for that target audience. Build for that target audience. There's a reason Joe Collins points so many people to Linux Mint, and that's because it works. Elementary doesn't work consistently. That's just a reality. And with that being said, they asked not to do reviews of it, so I'm just not going to do that. Not on the pre-recorded show. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this pre-recorded part out. So let me know your thoughts down below. And you need to keep your comments civil. I will block your comments if you are uncivil. And realize there are a lot of people that have a great experience in Elementary. There are a whole lot of people that don't. And if it works great for you, don't deny the fact that it doesn't work well for a lot of people. Okay, I've tried it on AMDs, I've tried it on Intels, I've tried it on multiple computers, I've tried it in VirtualBoxes. I've never got a good consistent work out of it. I realize some people have. Good for you if you like it. But these are those things that we need to be focusing on. Get a distro that works for us. Now, let me know your comments in the description down below. I hope you've enjoyed this video from Switched to Linux. If you'd like to help support the channel, check out the links at the top. There is another video over here. You can check out our Patreon page down here. And you can check out shop.switchtolinux.com for information on a t-shirt like this or some other designs. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.